Hi, I'm Paul Dickson, and this little video is about my space collection. I did a piece about a year ago called The Face of Space, and I call this The Face of Space Part 2. I've been covering space. I've been fascinated with space since I was a little kid. My first real job was to cover the Apollo program, or NASA. I was there during all of the end of the Gemini program as a reporter, and I collected a lot of material all the way through the Apollo program. I later did a lot of other space-related things. I wrote a book on space photography called Out of This World, and I wrote a book on Sputnik called Sputnik, the Shock of the Century, which came out in 2007 on the 50th anniversary of Sputnik. And that's why I'm wearing my Sputnik hat, which I'll now take off. But this hat was made for my neighbor to commemorate the 50th anniversary of Sputnik. So that goes over here. That's not part of the collection. That stays with the house. And so what I'm going to talk about today is the non-photography that's in this collection, in which I am in the process of getting ready for another collector or another museum or somebody who's interested in it. So I will start to show you what I've got and describe it. So one portion of this collection, there are several components to it, but one large portion of it are posters. I've collected about 50 posters, which I thought were the most important that I could find about the space, the history of space. And I will show you the ones I think are the rarest and to me the most intriguing, were some of these early posters that were produced internally for the people in NASA. They were safety posters. They were posters that had to do with the early launches of Mercury and Apollo. And I pulled out a few here. These are extremely hard to find these days. I think one sold the other day on eBay for about $200, and it was a later one. These are earlier. This is the Apollo team. Here's a Merry Christmas to one and all. This was from one of the Apollo flights, and again, it has the Charlie Brown logo. Again, this is like another one of these early safety posters. And again, I'm sorry about the teacups, but they're there. And here's one from the Apollo 8 crew, the famous one that went around the moon and took the first view of the Earth. But it's a little Christmas Happy New Year poster from the men on that thing. And this is another early one. Design it right, build it right. Again, the collection has a lot of the early material. Not only this type, early news things. This is an original Atlas launch, a photograph of that. There are other kinds of posters over the years. Another Apollo 8 poster. There's another collection of early Apollo posters. I'm not dragging them out. Some of the later material I did collect, though, is stuff that's graphically, to me, is even some of the Hubble stuff. Again, it's from all different periods. There's a lot of the early material, a lot of early material on NASA. But these come out, and a lot having to do with the Apollo anniversaries. There were beautiful posters made each time. So there were about 50 posters, not counting some dupes. There are some dupes in there, but 50 original posters. And with them comes some early material on just photography. Here's something that Kodak put out. Again, it's sort of a background piece on the most important photographs that NASA ever did with high-resolution images. And material that NASA put out, again, about its art collection. And some of these are prints. The cover is a little bit ripped, but they're in perfect condition. And there's quite a lot of this material. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but material on sort of the art and the graphics of space. Along with that, I'm also have a number of things that were collected by people who worked for Apollo, letters of commendation, again, all about Apollo, acknowledgments that people had worked on the team. Again, it's a collection of mostly Gemini and Apollo material. I'm also, again, this is a sort of a very diverse collection of material. I'm also, I've got a huge collections of space covers. These were covers that were signed. Some of these I got myself. You can see I mailed that was back on when John and Glenn went up in the space. But these were material that were postmarked at when an important event occurred. And again, this is something as a kid I was a big stamp collector. I gave that up as I got older, but I did keep up this sort of interest in the gathering covers from the day when certain events occurred, and some of these they're a lot of fun to look at. A lot of them are quite early, and again, there's a whole other box of them which I put in an early space lunchbox. In addition to that, I've got some fairly large collection of early and more recent, for lack of a better term, space jewelry. This is a collection I did because of the Sputnik book of original Sputnik pins and buttons, even American Reaction, some of it later anniversaries, but some from right at the time commemorating Sputnik. There are other materials. Some of these I gathered when I was covering space. Here's some cufflinks that were part of one of the early space programs. But again, it's a fairly large collection of Russian and some of this stuff I actually picked up at the Expo 67, 1967. But I would pick up material on both the Russian and the American space program. Some of it I picked up afterwards. And again, these are some of they go to some of the shuttle missions. But again, it's a whole hodgepodge again of different pieces of sort of space jewelry. You'll find, launch buttons and little silver things commemorating the shuttle, and it's just a sort of a fascination of mine. And this is more Russian material, and some of it I bought, some of it I was given, some of it I collected at the time. But it's got a nice collection to it. The other thing I've got, and this is sort of an odd piece, but again, it's part of this whole collection of space material. At one point, NASA was, when I was working there in a book, they were getting rid of a lot of the paperwork. They were digitizing a lot of the paperwork, some of the meetings of the committees. And they were throwing out, one day they were throwing out the Lunar Missions Board meetings, Lunar Planetary Mission Boards in 1969. But what was interesting to me was, and again, these are all been digitized, so they've been protected, but with the original documents, and many of which are signed by the participants, and it's all set up as these decisions about how different pieces of lunar exploration would take place. And it's just, I've got several of these albums, and as you can see, some are copies, but some are original, but they're all sort of labeled. But again, it's a piece of space history that is, I felt, worth protecting. So I've sort of, with great reluctance, I'm at a point now in my life where I think I'm going to give up this collecting of the space material. But the posters are, I think they're the most graphically interesting. But the pins are fun and the covers. But this is also, it's just wonderful reading because you actually can see where they're making the decisions. So thank you.